in the small, foggy town of Ravendale, there was an old train station at the edge of the woods. The station hadn't been used for over 50 years. Back in 1970, a train derailed near the station, killing dozens of passengers. Ever since then, people in the town said the station was cursed. Many avoided it, and parents warned their children to stay away. Ravi Patel, a journalist who had just moved to Ravendale, heard the story at a local gathering. He found it fascinating but didn't believe in curses or ghost stories. He decided to investigate. Locals told him about the midnight train, a ghostly train that appeared at the abandoned station. They warned him, "If you hear the whistle, don't look at the train." Ravi thought this was just small-town superstition. He laughed it off and made plans to visit the station at night. The station was as eerie as people described. Its platform was cracked and covered in weeds. The air around it felt heavy, and the woods nearby were silent, as if even the animals avoided the area. Ravi arrived just before midnight, carrying his camera, a notebook, and a flashlight. When the clock struck 12, he heard a distant sound, a faint whistle that grew louder. A chill ran through him, but he stayed focused. Soon, he heard the clatter of wheels on tracks. Ravi thought it might be his imagination, but when he looked toward the tracks, he saw something emerge from the fog. A train appeared, shimmering like it wasn't entirely real. Its windows glowed with a strange blue light, and inside, shadowy figures sat perfectly still. They looked like passengers, but something about them felt off. Ravi's heart raced as he lifted his camera to take pictures. The train slowed down and stopped at the platform. Its doors opened with a metallic groan. Ravi stood frozen, unsure whether to move closer. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the train. It was a woman wearing a tattered dress. Her head was tilted slightly to the side, and her eyes were hollow and empty. Her skin looked pale and unnatural. She stood still for a moment, then whispered, "Why are you here?" Ravi tried to stay calm and answered, "I'm a journalist. I want to know the truth about this station and the train." The woman tilted her head further as if studying him. "Truth?" she said softly. "The truth doesn't set you free. It binds you here." Before Ravi could say anything else, she turned and walked back onto the train. The whistle blew again, and the train began to move. Ravi watched as it disappeared into the fog, the blue light fading away. Shaken, Ravi went back home and reviewed the photos on his camera. Most of them were blurry or distorted, as if something had interfered with the lens. But one photo was clear. It showed the woman standing on the platform, staring directly at the camera with her hollow eyes. Ravi felt a wave of unease, but convinced himself it was just a strange experience. For the next few days, Ravi tried to focus on his article. He decided to leave out the part about the woman, fearing it might sound too unbelievable. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Late at night, he started hearing faint whispers outside his apartment door. One night, he woke up to the sound of a train whistle. Confused, he looked out of his window and saw a faint, glowing train waiting on the tracks in the distance. It was the same train he had seen at the station. Ravi's heart pounded as he realized it was calling him back. The next morning, Ravi's apartment was empty. His camera and notebook were found on the table. On the last page of the notebook, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "They told me not to look. I should have listened." Months later, hikers exploring the woods near the station found Ravi's camera. When they looked through the photos, they noticed something chilling. In one of the images of the glowing train, there was a new passenger on the platform, a man in modern clothes, standing among the shadowy figures. The midnight train had claimed another soul. Weeks passed, and the people of Ravendale continued their daily lives, unaware of the strange events surrounding the old train station. Some still whispered about the cursed place, but most had forgotten. The story of the midnight train, like so many others, faded into the past. Yet, for those who had witnessed the eerie occurrence, the memory remained fresh, haunting them. The hikers who had found Ravi's camera kept the discovery to themselves for a while, unsure of what to make of it. The photos were eerie, showing the glowing ghostly train and the shadowy figures sitting inside. But it was the image of the new man on the platform that unsettled them the most. He wasn't part of the original ghostly train passengers. He was different. His clothes were modern, his expression vacant and empty, and he appeared to be staring right at the camera, just like the woman who had stepped off the train. Rumors began to circulate about the man in the photo. Some claimed he was Ravi, returned from wherever the train had taken him. Others suggested the train had claimed him as its own, pulling him into its ghostly fold. Nobody knew for sure, but there was a growing sense of unease in the town. People began to avoid the old train station, and those who ventured close at night swore they could hear the faint whistle of a train in the distance, followed by the sound of clattering wheels. One night, a curious teenager named Emma decided to go to the station. She had heard the stories from her friends, but like Ravi, she wasn't one to believe in ghosts or curses. Armed with her phone to take photos, she arrived at the station just before midnight. The fog rolled in thicker than usual, and the air felt heavy, like something was watching her. As the clock struck 12, she heard it, the whistle. It was faint at first, but soon it grew louder, just like the old stories. Her heart raced as she turned her camera on, ready to capture whatever would appear. To her shock, the train emerged from the mist, its blue lights flickering in the darkness. This time, the figures inside the train were clearer, their faces now visible, hollow, empty eyes staring out of the windows. Emma froze, too afraid to move or look away. The train slowed as it reached the platform, and just like in Ravi's photos, the doors opened. Standing at the door was the same woman, the one Ravi had seen. Her vacant eyes locked onto Emma's. "Why are you here?" she whispered, her voice cold and distant. Before Emma could reply, the woman tilted her head and stepped back into the train. The doors slid shut, and with a screech of metal on metal, the train began to pull away. As it disappeared into the fog, Emma was left standing in silence. She looked at her phone, which had mysteriously turned off during the encounter. When she turned it back on, the screen showed only one image, a photo of the train. But this time, Emma was in the picture. Standing on the platform, her own eyes were hollow and empty, just like the other passengers. Terrified, Emma fled the station and didn't speak to anyone about what she had seen. But the image on her phone haunted her. It was as if the midnight train had already claimed her, and there was no escape from its reach. The stories of the cursed station and the midnight train lived on, becoming more than just local legends. They became warnings to anyone who dared approach the platform after midnight. As for Emma, she vanished just like Ravi. No one saw her again. Her family searched for her, but the only trace they found was her phone, lying abandoned at the edge of the woods near the station. It was said that on some nights, if you stood near the old train station, you could hear the faint sound of a train whistle in the distance, accompanied by the soft clatter of wheels on tracks. And if you listened closely, you might just hear the whisper of a voice asking, "Why are you here?" No one ever answered. The midnight train still waits, its passengers lost in time, and the station remains a place where the past and present collide. And for those who dare to venture too close, the train is always there, waiting for its next soul to claim.